Assalamualaikum everyone. In today's session, I will give you an introduction to MS Access. Microsoft Access is a product of Microsoft Office. It is an RDBMS, which means Relational Database Management System. It is good for small organizations or for small businesses. So we will see how we can create and store database using MS Access. So let's get started. To open MS Access, you can write here in the search, and here this is the Access app. So we are going to create a new database, so we will select the blank database. Here these are the different templates, but for today we will be using blank database. Now if you want to change the name of your database, you can write it here. I will let it database 5 and then I will click on the create button. So now you can see that the database is created and the one table has been created by default. So I have said that MS Access is an RDBMS, Relational Database Management System. In RDBMS, the data is stored in the form of tables. So we know that table has a column and row. Similarly, here the table has columns and it has rows. In database terms, we call the column as a field, which defines the properties or the attributes of an entity, and a row is basically a record. So here, when we will be writing a data, it will be a record per row. And here these are the columns, so we will be defining attributes in these columns. This is the different options in the top menu, and we will be using some of them according to our requirement. Okay, first, now we want to add more fields, more columns to this table. So what we will do, here we have a view button. Click on it and it has two options, datasheet view and design view. Right now we are at the datasheet view. So when we want to add more fields to our table, we will go to design view. Now it will ask you to give the table name and save it. So I will write here employee. Like if I am going to store the data of an employee, I will write the table name as employee and save it. Now this is the design view. Here I can add different fields and their data types. It has already defined an ID field by default and its data type is auto number. Auto number means that the numbers will be generated automatically for each record. So if I want to add some other field, for example, first name, and then I will select its data type. So by default it has selected the short text, so I will also select the short text. Now you can see that there are different options for data type. Like we have long text. Of course the long text will get more space than the short text. Then simple number like age or your marks. These are all the numbers. So for that field we will select this number option, and then large number can be the insurance number, which is bigger in size. Then for date and time we have this data type. For monetary values we have this currency. Then auto number I have explained. For boolean values, like if the record is only yes or no, it has yes or no. OLE object is like if you want to add some object like Word document to your record, so you can select this option. Then we have hyperlink option. Hyperlink is for example, you want to add your email address or some website address, you can select this data type. Then attachment, if you want to attach some file like any picture, so you can select this data type. Calculated, if you want this record to be calculated, means it can be calculated from some other record, so you can select this. And lookup wizard will be like you can give different options so that when the person is entering the data, the person can select any option from the lookup wizard. We'll be looking at it in the detail. Okay. So now we know that how we can create new field and how we can select the data type. So here we have a task given. Add the following fields to the table with the appropriate data types: L name for last name, tel number for telephone number, DOB for date of birth, date joined, salary, address, city, postal code, on leave, and gender. Note that some fields may have more than one correct data type. So it depends that some of the fields can have more than one data type. So it depends on you which data type you want to select. Okay, so let's perform this task. I have minimized it so that we can see easily. Okay, so I have added its first name. I will let it like this. Next we have L name for last name. Next we have, by default it's giving short text, so it's okay. Next we have date of birth for DOB, and here I will select date and time because it will be a date. Then next we have date joined. For date joined it will be again date and time. The data type will be date and time. Next we have salary, so here we can select, you can select number or you can select currency. Next we have address, city, and postal code. So for address I will select long text because of course the address needs more characters, and then city can be short text, then postal code, it can be number, or if it's a combination of alphanumeric then you can select text, then on leave and gender. So on leave, okay, now here on leave means that if the employee is on leave or not. There are just two options we have, so I will select yes or no. We have gender, so we can select short text for gender. Now we have seen that the data type should be according to the field. We have defined the fields and all their data types. Okay, you can save it. And now you have defined all the fields of your table. So now it's time to save some records. Okay, so for entering the records we will go to datasheet view. Now here you can see that we can add different records. Okay, for now I will not add any record because first I want to explain the fields properties. We will go again to the design view. Okay, now here you can see these are the field properties, this one. So from here we can further define the properties of each field, like we will be using some of them, so let's have a look. So here we have field size, like how much size this field is going to take. Then we have format, if we want to store our record in some specific format. The input masking and validation rule and validation text, we will be doing it in the coming session. Caption is like the title of the field. For example, here we have used some short forms like F name. So in the caption I can write the whole first name, like whole first name. If you don't write the caption, the field name automatically becomes the caption. Then default value. So default value is when you set the default value. So every time when you will start entering the new record, the default value will be there already. You can change it, but if you don't change it, it will be the default value for that record. Next, required. Required means if you select yes for the required field, it means that you must enter this record. You cannot let it to be a null value. Allow zero length. Allow zero length means that you can allow zero length strings. For example, if someone doesn't enter first name, there is zero length string, so it will accept it. Indexed. So for indexed, we have these options: yes, duplicates, okay, and yes, no duplicates. So if you select yes, no duplicates, it will not allow any duplicate value in this field. Indexes are the same like bookmarks that can speed up the search process. Then we have Unicode compression. Unicode compression is to compress the characters, so you will be saving some space in the database. IME mode and IME sentence mode, these are for complex languages, especially for Asian languages. We will not be using them because we will be working in English. And then text align, it's like in the Word when you align your text left, right, center. Okay, so these are the different field properties, and we can set field properties for each field according to the requirement. So here we have another task which says that modify the field properties so that the serial number, F name and last name are required fields. Okay, so now it has given us some more information on the fields of serial number, F name and last name, that they should be required fields. Like when you are entering the record, these three records must be entered. If you let them empty, it will give you error. So first of all, here we will change ID to SID. Okay, and for SID, we will change the data type from auto number to number. Okay, now you have seen there is a sign of key with the SID. Here it was by default. This is the primary key. Here this option is selected. This is a primary key. So primary key is basically that field which uniquely identify your record. For example, what can be the primary key in case of students? So what is that one property that uniquely identify a student? It's their registration number. So no two students can have same registration number because it is unique. Name can be same. We cannot take name as a primary key because there can be Ali Khan in some electrical department and Ali Khan in management department. Like the names can have duplicates. But your registration number is unique. It is uniquely identified. So for each table, you must identify your primary key. So here, this SID, I have selected it as a primary key and I have changed its data type to number because I don't want it to be like auto number, because there should be some valid number and it should be unique. There are no duplicates allowed here. You can even change this if you want to change the primary key. For example, you can unselect it or you can select some other field as a primary key like this. But right now we will select this as a primary key. And each table must have one primary key. Okay. We will select the field properties and here we want it as a required field. Okay, now you can see that for primary key it is by default required. Like you must enter primary key. You cannot let this field or let this record to be empty. Next, for F name, we want it as a required field, so we will select this option as required. Then for last name, we also want this field to be required field. So we have selected required for the first 3 fields. Next, fname and lname should not allow zero length entries. Okay, so here the zero length entry it should not allow, so we will select no for lname and we will do the same for the first name. Should not allow zero length value, no. Next, set the default value for city to Calgary. Now we have this city field and here we will write its default value as Calgary. Like for example, if you are entering the records of one particular city, so you know that all the employees or all the people belong to city vacant. So in default value of the city you will write vacant, so you don't need to write that information again and again. But if you want to change it, you can change it. Next, set the default value for date joined to today's date. Okay, so now for date joined we want to add default value as today's date. So how we will get today's date? We will get today's date with the date function. So we will write date function here and it will take today's date as a default date. We can change it later. As the caption of DOB, type in birthday. And for DOB we have a field property caption and we will write here as date of birth. Right, so we have completed this task. First we have created fields, we selected their data types, and then for each required field we select some field properties. We changed some of the field properties. Now we can save it. Now we can move towards the record entering. So we will go to datasheet view. Okay, now first I want to show you something. Here you can see that when we selected default value as today's date, so here the default value is already written, it's today's date. Then for city the default value is given, which we set as Calgary. Here on leave there is a checkbox, like if it's empty it means no, if it is checked it means yes. And now let's start entering the data. So we are entering the record of first employee. I will write here the SID, then I will write some name, then last name, then date of birth. Here you have this calendar option because the data type of this field is date and time, so you can select any date you can select. Okay. Date joined, you can change it if you want, like if I will do it like this, it will accept this new value. For salary we will write some like 50,000. Then address you can write any address, it will be a long value. Next, here you can change this city value or you can let it like this, Calgary. Here you will write the postal code, you can write any number. If you will check it, it means that this employee is on leave, and then here you will write the gender, which is male. So I have entered the first record. Now moving towards the next record. Here I want to show something. So I have entered SID. Next I am entering the last name. So let it Saad. Then I am selecting some date of birth. Then salary. Then I am adding some random address and city. And now what it says that you must enter first name because we have set it as a required field. So I will write here first name, and then for gender you can write it male. So this is our second record. So here what we checked that if we let this first name field null, it will not accept it because we have make it a required field, so we must enter some record here. Second, here you can see I have let the postal code. I didn't enter any value for postal code and it accepted it. Why? Because this is not a required field. Okay, now here for primary key, which is SID, if I repeat the previous value and let's enter some new names. Okay, we can let other fields as it is. Now, the error is they would create duplicate values in the index, primary key or relationships. So actually I have entered a duplicate value in the primary key, which is not accepted. It must be unique. I will enter 14 and now this record is successfully entered. And here you can see the caption of DOB field. It is shown as date of birth because I have written the caption as date of birth. So we have checked the field properties are working. Now if you want to create some new table, here you will go to create option and here you have option of a table. So this new table has been created by the default field ID. You will again go to the design view. You will save the table name like accounts. And here you can add fields and their data types and some field properties in a similar way we have done for the employees. So these two tables are present in our database 5 or whatever name you have given here. So this is all about today's session. In next session we will see how we can apply validation rule and input masking.